Hello and welcome to the world of LocoFi. Today I'll be demonstrating the install of LocoFi decoder in our most popular locomotive, an old blue box style Athearn DC only locomotive. We have chosen a GP35 Burlington Road number 989 for this session. Now LocoFi decoder comes pre-installed, pre-wired with a speaker, a micro SD card with sounds preloaded onto it, NMRA color-coded wires, a micro SD adapter for loading any custom sounds you may want to, and some spare LEDs. If you are familiar with the install of a DCC decoder, this install is going to be very similar except for some subtle differences, as we will see later. So let's get started. So let's first take the shell off. The shell on this locomotive is attached to the chassis by these two pins. I usually use the plastic pry tool to take the shell off, but you can as well use a small screwdriver for the same. There you go. The shell is off, and here's how it looks from the inside. Let's keep the shell aside for now. First, a little word about the wiring in these types of locomotives. The right side power comes through these wheels into these clips, the wiper clips over here, and the same thing for the rear truck, to this connector clip, and goes to the bulb and the motor here. So it's the top side of the motor, the brush. And the left side of power, it comes from these trucks through this rotating pin. It's down here. Not sure if you can see, but it's kind of hidden underneath this worm gear. And the same goes for the front side and into the chassis. This chassis is completely metallic and conducting. There is a similar clip just like on top of the motor here on the bottom side of the motor, and it connects to the chassis. And you see here the chassis is connected to this clip over here, which connects to the other side of the bulb. So the power kind of, assuming the right side is the red rail, the current kind of flows from here to these clips, to the connecting, through the bulb and through the motor, down to the chassis and out the left rail. Just to show it in a pictorial form, I'll quickly show you a diagram of how this looks like. Here I've grabbed my tablet to quickly mock up the wiring diagram, which kind of puts us in perspective to how it's physically laid out in the locomotive. So we'll represent the right side of the rail with the red line. You can see here. The power gets picked up by the right side wheels, trucks, and through these clips, as we mentioned before, these wiper clips. Excuse my drawing, sorry, I'm not a good artist, but just to represent. So we have the connecting clip here, and this goes to the wiper clip of the bulb, this one. And this small connecting clip just beneath this connecting clip connects the top of the motor brush. Let's draw up the bulb in yellow, motor in blue, and the left side of power with the black lines. So as I mentioned before, there is a similar clip on the bottom of the motor which goes to the left side of the power. And it connects to the chassis. Similarly, the bulb, the other side of the bulb connects to the chassis. And the chassis in turn is connected by these two pins over here, right next to the worm gears, which connect to the left side of the wheels eventually and goes out the left side of the track. So this is how we complete the circuit. Power coming from the right hand side, the red side, goes through the bulb and the DC motor and out the left rails. So this is how a simple DC locomotive operates and how it kind of looks like in these blue box types. Now we will look at the LocoFi and how it's going to be wired and how it's going to look like after we have made all the connections. For LocoFi, the LocoFi decoder basically gets commands from the controller app on your smartphone and directs the motor or the lights depending on what you do in the app. For that to happen, the decoder only takes power from the rails but has a built-in microcontroller which does all the actions. So that's the one which will be driving the motor and the lights. So let's look at the decoder here. So the wires on these decoder are NMRA standard, color coded. So the red and black are the track wires, the ones here. The orange and gray, they go to the motor. So the one that connects to the red, the right side of the rail, would be the orange wire to make sure the locomotive goes forward. And the white goes to the front light, the yellow goes to the rear light, and blue is the common and ground. It connects to the negative of the LEDs that we will use. The white and the yellow will connect to the positive of the LEDs. So in order to do that, we have to separate the motor from being powered directly from the tracks. And this is what we call isolating the motor. So what we are going to do is cut these connections off here and power directly from the orange and gray wires which come out of the decoder. So let's draw a new diagram and we'll see how things work out. So the connections would look something like this. I'm gonna use a brown to draw the outline of the locomotive. Again, sorry for my bad drawing. And we'll use the same color to display other things so that we don't conflict with the color of the wires. This is our motor. This is our front light. This is our rear light. Left track. Right track. Let's use brown again to draw the decoder here. So this is only a representation, not physically how things will connect, which I will show separately to kind of put things in perspective. Let's go back to red. Black. It's actually pretty simple, the wiring. It's the orange. That's the gray. Yellow. White. Blue. Oops. So this is how the wiring looks like eventually when it's all wired. The motor would have been isolated and would connect to the gray and orange wires here. The track would only provide power. It could be DC or DCC because there is a rectifier on the board which will filter out the AC component of the DCC power. And the blue is the negative side of the LEDs, which I will show you later. The white and the yellow is the positive side of the LEDs. Let me first connect the power to the tablet. It's running low on battery here. Okay. So let's look at the physical layout of the LocoFi inside this locomotive, how it will roughly look like. That's our right track. 2 wiper clips. And instead of using the connecting clip here, we will take the connecting clip out and connect it with a piece of red wire so that both the front and the rear are connected together. Let's draw the motor in the middle. The motor would have cut off power from the track, so I'm not showing any connections here. Our decoder will lay on top of the motor, so let's roughly kind of draw it here. And the left side of track is here. This represents the chassis. These are the pins that power the chassis. And remember this front where the wiper clip from the bulb connects. So we'll be taking out this whole thing. It just kind of clips very without any like a permanent collection. You just pull it out and it just comes right off. We'll have a black wire connecting here to the black wire of the decoder. So this is how we'll connect this together. On the similar node, the red would connect like this. The orange will connect to the top of the motor, so it will go and connect to the top clip. The gray would connect to the bottom of the clip, and we would have isolated it from the frame right here. So no connection to the frame, that's very important. Then we have the lights. So this yellow wire will go to the LED here. Oops, I'm sorry, it's the white which goes to the front, so it goes here, yellow goes here, and the blue would connect to the blue wire here. I'm just gonna draw LEDs like this, and that's pretty much it. And really simple actually once you get a hang of this thing. So let's get started on doing the actual install. So we'll keep the tablet aside for now. Let's take out the power. We'll charge it later. First things first, this clip needs to come off. You can use a pair of needle nose pliers or something similar to kind of pull it right off over here. Just want to show you something. So it's it has a small projection here which kind of holds it in place here. So if you just press it with your pliers, kind of push it inside, then it's kind of easy to take this thing out. It's not coming out. Need to push it further, more so. And there we go. Next thing is take this clip off. Since we will not be using the LED, the bulbs for the lights, we'll be instead using the LEDs. So we don't need the bulbs or this clip over here, the connecting clip. Now we need to isolate the motor. For that, we'll have to take the motor out. The motor is held inside the chassis with the help of these two clips here, one over here and one on this side. So the motor kind of snugly fits inside, and there is these 4 tabs which go out the bottom and kind of keeps it in position. So we'll have to just pull the motor out, and just in case these clips, they tend to break very easily, we just need to replace those clips. That's better, or use some glue to join them, to glue them up. And they're pretty easy to find on eBay, these mounting clips. But so I'll just try to pull the motor out, which is, oh, that was easy. It's out, and there we go. There you go. Just take it out and put it back here. That was actually real easy. Some piece of metal. So you see how this piece of metal over here connects to the bottom of the motor with the help of these projecting clips here. So they kind of touch this metal clip, which in turn is connected to the chassis. We'll push these clips inside, put a piece of Kapton or some electrical insulating tape just to make sure that nothing gets in the way, the chassis and this bottom of the motor. Even just pushing the clips would help, but it's just an extra precautionary step. And I'll just tape another piece of Kapton tape just here, just to be safe. I have this 1/2 inch Kapton tape with me. I'll just roughly measure it up. Let's measure it up to the width of this and somewhere around this much. And divide it into 2, so that makes it 2 1/4-inch pieces of tape. I'll put 1 piece of tape right here. And 1 piece of tape on top of this after I push these projecting clips here into the main body. And for that, I'll have to just kind of take it off, and while taking it off, just be careful. There's a DC motor brush. The brush is held in position by a spring between this clip and the brush. So it's not visible here, but the moment you take it off, the spring tends to kind of fly out. So just take the clip off and gently remove it. Let's do that. I'll use my pliers to, like so. And the magical spring. Alright, so let's push these things inside. So one technique that I use is actually to pull it back further first, then bend around here, and if you can see on the front side only, like kind of folding it. Same thing for this one. Pull back, fold it only half of it like inside so that it kind of looks like this, and that makes it easier to now push it inside. So I just press it with my pliers here. There you go. I'll say. While we are here, I will solder the gray wire right now before I attach this clip back. Let me grab my soldering iron. I'm gonna use a lead-free solder and a temperature of 665 degrees Fahrenheit. Grab my helping hands here. Put some generous amounts of flux here. Everyone has different opinions on the amount of flux they use. Some people use very little. I tend to use a lot because these are old engines and it takes a lot more to kind of oxidize, to remove the oxides from here. So I'm just gonna like tin it here. We have enough solder in here now, and lots of smoke too. Let's get the decoder wire, the gray wire. This thing is gonna be like this, so it's wired up like this. So these wires, they come pre-tinned, so we don't really need to tin them again. I'm just gonna apply some more flux here. This time a little would do, just for any oxides that might have built when I tinned it. Seems like a solid connection here. It's hard though. And let it cool down, that we don't have any loose joints. Really didn't need to remove the tape because this tape is very heat resistant, but it was kind of getting in the way, so I had to remove it. Okay. Nicely covers up. Put it back on the motor here. try the motor brackets again and see if it seats now. Just trying to get all the wires out of the way. I'm gonna put the gears later. Yeah, there you go. Take this clip off. Reseat the truck here. You can see in that. So yeah, now it's a good time to actually show how the chassis gets connected to the left side of the rail. You can see the pin over there, which is connected to the chassis, and this side of the trucks is when this pin goes inside this truck, it connects this left side power to the chassis. So this hole here, I'm just gonna put the pin here, set it, right here, and then place the worm gear. I think that should fix the problem. Yeah, alright. Well, something unexpected here, so sorry about that. This usually doesn't happen. I've done other installs on GP35 without these issues. This is something new cropping up, so I think each install is a little bit new, a little different. Well, take this. All right. Seating these worm gears is a project in itself. So it's clipped right down. Yeah. Okay, I think the hard part is over. Supposedly, it was not supposed to be this hard. Now what we'll do is first connect the orange wire here to the top of the motor right here, and run a red wire from here to here, and connect this over here as well. Run a black wire from here to here to the decoder, because this connects to the chassis. This clip right here. Alright, so let's get started and quickly thin some of the joints here. Just take care not to touch any of the plastic here. There you go. I'll quickly cut up some wires here. Approximately this much. My wire cutter. Approximately this much. Let's get these wires connected first before we connect the lights, and we're done. Lights, yeah, we'll get to that. Wire stripper. I'm just gonna tin these wires here real quick. Get this wire, black one in place here. All right, looks good. I'm using the alloy SAC 305, which has a different liquidus and solidus temperature, so the solidus is lower than the liquidus, so it takes a while before it solidifies. So you have to take care not to move while it's getting solidified. Nice shiny joints there. The heat must have caused the strip to expand and come right off. Let it cool down and just snap it back in. Or I hope I didn't melt this plastic. Hopefully not. So, let's clip back in place. Use some heat shrink tubing for the black wire here. Peel it a little bit more so that I can work with it. Hold it right there. A little bit of lux. Not a whole lot here. Actually, we don't even need it because I use a flux core wire, but it just helps. It doesn't hurt. Cover it up with this heat shrink tubing. Right, we are pretty much wired up, pretty much. You just need to ensure this doesn't get in the way. That's gonna be the last step we do. Then we'll kind of adjust the speaker and let's get these things wired up. So just to kind of reiterate what we have done here, as I showed in the diagram I earlier drew, the black wire is basically connecting to the chassis here and goes to the decoder. It powers the decoder, this one and the black one. Oh, and sorry, the red one. And the red also connects the front and the rear trucks, so that both of them we get power from at least one of them. And the motor wires, the orange goes to the top here, and the gray we connected to the bottom already here, you can see. So we have these wires in place, and now we just need to connect the LEDs. Let's get LEDs out. And we don't need any resistors because resistors are on board. We keep the micro SD card aside for now. And so let's wire up the LEDs. Now one thing before we wire up the LEDs is let's bring the shell back and try to see how long a wire it would take to actually we don't want too long or too short wires, so it just kind of approximately measure up how long a wire it would take to wire up these LEDs. And so couple of things here. It seems the board would fit pretty easy. It shouldn't be any problem. I mean, there's enough space in here. I think the biggest problem of all, even like I won't even say the motor or soldering the wires or anything, is to actually figure out, to kind of attach the LEDs in place here. So for that we will be using a hot glue gun for now. I mean, you can be creative and use something else if you like, and that's the probably the toughest part, to figure out how to actually position the components inside your locomotive. I mean, it fits very nicely inside. It's just the positioning which is gonna take some time to figure out, if at all. And since I've done many installs, I know how I'm gonna do it, and you can see that as well. So let's get started with the LEDs. Let me grab some wire. Got this piece of white wire here. Probably should be enough. Just give it some slack here, and I think this should be a good decent length. And the next wire would be the yellow wire. I am not sure if I need a yellow wire. You might actually need a little bit. Again, cannot give it some slack. We can always bundle everything else, the extra wire together. Let me cut this much, not a whole lot. Then we need the blue wire. The blue wire would be approximately, we'll need two pieces here, about this much. Get some slack here, and another about this much. That's it. Let's quickly strip them all at the ends and tin them. I'm gonna just strip off the ends a little bit longer so that they can be made into a nice splice. Let's tin these ends. I'm just dipping the ends in flux and then so I'm gonna use this 3 mm LED for the front light, and as you can see, and you probably know it, but I'm just gonna kind of say it again. It has a longer lead, which is the positive, and it has a shorter, which is negative. So, and here is also a difference from installing the DCC decoders is when you use LEDs, you have to wire the white wire to the negative, if I'm correct. But anyways, I'm just trying to give a contrast here, but in the case of LocoFi, we use the white wire to wire to the positive of the LED instead of the negative, and the blue wire is what goes to the negative. So let's wire it up. I'm just gonna shorten the leads a little bit here. I'm also gonna do something else. I'm gonna just wire up, not heat shrink wrap the front of the LED to about 3/4 length so that it doesn't shine like really bright in the cab when we don't need that light. So I'm gonna just do that as well. So I'm gonna use a slightly wider heat shrink wrap tube for that. Again, don't want to heat the LED too much. So I hope it lights up. And there we go. I'm gonna just see the wire, the LED wire over here. And kind of hot glue it in place. I'm gonna just leave it in place here while my hot glue gun heats up and show you the wiring for the rear LEDs. Now for the rear lights, I have provided these 1.8 mm LEDs, you can see. And the good thing about these LEDs is, like, if you put right next to each other, they fit real nice in here. So you can see probably over here, the rear light. So what I'm gonna do is, like, kind of join them together in parallel and then just stick it right behind these two slots for the lights. What I'm gonna do is join the two longer leads together and join with the yellow wire, and the two smaller leads together with the blue wire. So let me just wire it up and I'll show you how it looks. Here's a close-up look of what I was saying, and if it's visible, but we have the yellow wire kind of hooked up to the two positives together and the blue wire to the two negatives together. So now I'm gonna heat shrink wrap these connections and then do the final wiring. So I got the the yellow and the white wire all soldered up, heat shrink wrapped. So I'm just gonna do the blue wires, and I thought I'll show you something real quick here. So since this is like a triple joint, there's three wires meeting at one point, I thought I'll show you how I kind of wire them up. So I kind of join the two wires together like this kind of a splice, where they're like parallel to each other and like side by side, and then use the wire from the decoder to kind of form a straight splice with, you know, the other two wires. So just a convenience, that's how I do it. I mean, there may be again a better method out there, so please use whatever is more convenient for you. So I heat shrink wrapped, heat shrink tube the blue wires here, and and attach the LEDs in here with hot glue, and they are now in position. All I just need to do is now mount the board on top of this clip here, and set the speaker on the side, and then see how it looks. So I again used hot glue gun to kind of mount the board on top of this here. I just used a piece of tape to kind of hang the speaker on. This is just for demonstration. Again, we can come up with some creative ways to put things together nicely. So this is just to show pretty much the wiring and how you can do it. It's like just one way to do the things. And so we'll now just close the shell and do a test run. So here we are for the test run, and I've already added the Locomotive to my home network. It's the second one here. The first one is another Athearn. It's a newer one. Anyways, so let's try it out and see the LocoFi in action. I click manage, click on the Locomotive, and it's setting up the dashboard, and the front light comes on. Horn seems to work. The horn seems to work. Let's fire up the engine. Let's chime the bell. And let's give some throttle. So that was our test run. And the LocoFi installation is complete, and our Athearn Blue Box is now LocoFied. Thank you.